Good morning, or afternoon, or evening, wherever it is where you are. Let's talk about the 986-997 original halogen headlights, often referred to as the Runny Egg headlight. For me, I really like the original look. If you've watched any of my other videos that involve more of the storytelling or just chit chat, car talk kind of stuff, you'll know that my goal was to get my Boxster into its original manufactured state and basically repair any old worn items that have been worn out over 20 years and get them into brand new, so that it feels like I have a new 2002 Porsche Boxster from the factory. So part of that is the headlights. So we'll go into how to remove the headlights, why I removed them, why I'm swapping them when my previous ones worked just fine. And you'll see most of the common situations that happen with these headlights. It's just what it is. Doesn't matter if you have a Boxster, a 911 from that era. I believe it's 97 through 2003/4. I think they may have actually changed it with the 986 before they went to the 987. So the biggest situations we'll cover here. So let's jump into it. So I've got working headlights, and you're wondering, well, why would you want to switch them if they work? They look pretty good. The lenses are actually pretty clear. But if you look at these headlights, you can see right away the passenger side turn signal has pretty much been blown out over age and time and sun damage, I would assume. This is the most common problem with these headlights, with the orange turn signals and corner pieces. The turn signal portion will fade, and now it's an obvious non-match to the corner piece. I talked to my buddy Kurt, and his theory is that the turn signal piece is painted on the inside and the corner piece is an actual amber colored piece of plastic. And that would track for me because the corner pieces on my vehicle, now, of course, they could have been replaced, but they certainly look more consistent to each other than the turn signals. So as you can see here, the turn signals on the passenger side is very burnt out as far as like its color, not its operational, but it's, I guess you could say it's cooked is maybe the term that people would use. So I was on the hunt for some new headlights. Well, while I was looking for a new headlight, I noticed some other things about the headlights. So the first one I found, I got really lucky. Again, thank you, Kurt. Noticed on Craigslist there was one on passenger side. The seller was local and said it had come out of an 8,000 mile 99 Boxster. I said, okay, well, I'll at least go check it out. And he only wanted $150, which is a phenomenal price. So I went, checked it out, about 20 minutes from my house, actually. Got lucky there. And indeed, it was in really good shape. Got it back, kept it, and I went to go put it in. And I noticed that it was drastically different in other ways to my driver's side. So while the driver's side amber turn signal and corner piece still sort of matched, now the passenger side looked too new, and I could clearly see what that problem was there. And I'll show you here. On the top of these lights, another thing that can start to look bad is that the top banding will start to yellow or sort of just look muddy. And here's a comparison right here. You can see a big difference. And I wouldn't think you would notice that with the lights apart from each other in the vehicle, but you definitely do. It's definitely like, okay. So then I realized, okay, now I can't install this light now because now it's going to match even worse, actually. So I decided to now go on the hunt for a driver's side. Well, I was able to find an OEM driver's side on eBay for under $500. So I was really excited about that. And I didn't quite believe it was really OEM and new. I sent a message to the seller. I said, this is really new. And he's like, yep, new in the package from Germany. I was like, okay. So that light showed up. Indeed, it was brand new, brand spanking new, still in the cellophane. And then I was ready to go. So I'm going to walk you through the process of how to get these lights out and, what to look for. And also one big thing is the corner pieces going in. I had some issues with my current ones, and I'll explain what to watch out for there because those pieces are very expensive. It's probably one of the few pieces I've purchased so far since owning the car where I'm really like, this is ridiculous for $85 or whatever it is for each of those things. And if you go to buy these lights on eBay, most people are not selling them with those corner pieces. I'd say like 90%. So you're going to end up buying those. Now, why aren't they selling them with these corner pieces? My theory is as soon as they try and take those pieces off, they break because these little tabs break, which is exactly what happened to me. And I'll go into that in a future section of this video. So let's jump in. Okay, first thing that you're gonna need to do to get the headlights out is pop the trunk, the front trunk. Your trunk light's gonna be on. It's up to you whether you wanna just work with it on. I'm gonna go ahead and do that for the sake of this video. If you think you're gonna leave your trunk open for a long time, the light will actually eventually go off. I don't know what the timeout on that is. It seems like it's about 1.5 to 2 hours. So first thing you need to do, there's gonna be a little plastic nut, I guess you could say, that you can unscrew by hand. And you kind of have to pull some tension on it as you're pulling it and turning it. I'm not even convinced it's completely threaded to turn like a screw. Sometimes I feel like you can just pull this thing out, but I end up turning it, and that seems to be the way to kind of pull it out. Just use some patience. It might take a minute to get it out. So once you've pulled that back, you can just carefully pull back the felt trim under that rubber gasket. You don't want to tear that gasket when you're pulling it out. And now you're able to access the headlight release, basically nut, if you will. Now the vehicle does come with a tool to take the headlight out. I have found that my tool must be rounded off or something, because when I try and put the headlight back in, I cannot get it to click. It just rotates within and like it's stripped basically, or rounded off. So I'll use what you'll see here, just a regular screwdriver with a 5mm hex bit on the end of it. Plenty of leverage, and you can go from there. So there's a little rubber grommet you're gonna need to pull out. I made the mistake first time of trying to look for where this thing was, and I was opening all these other grommets, and there's a little blue grommet in there that I actually popped out and broke. So I had to order that. They call it a stopper on Pelican Parts. It's only a couple bucks, but just be aware. Some of this plastic can be brittle, but fortunately for the headlight section, it's a rubber grommet, so you're not gonna, break anything. All right, pull the grommet out, and now you're going to stick your screwdriver in there. If you're on your passenger side, you are going to turn it clockwise. And the way you can remember this, it's going to be the opposite on the driver's side, is once we show you the piece that's pushing the light out, it makes sense that it's pushing the light forward by turning this little piece of metal. So if you think of clockwise, it's rotating this metal thing forward, and then on your other side, counterclockwise, it's doing the exact opposite, rotating it forward, because now you're on the other side. So I'll show you that. Put it in here, you're gonna turn it. By the way, you're gonna hear a big snap. Don't be alarmed, you're not breaking anything. You're gonna hear that same snap when you're putting the headlight back in, and that confirms that it is indeed locked in place. And we'll show you how that mechanism is working. So you hear the snap, and then you start to look for the headlight popping out. And once it starts to come out, you're actually going to want to turn your screwdriver back just like a quarter turn, because there's a piece of metal under there that needs to go down, straight up and down, to make way for the light to come out. So it's super easy to get these lights out. It's just a little bit of, being careful as far as how you get them back in. We'll have some tabs we'll show you when you put them back in. And now you have access to the light tray and everything. All right, so the headlight's out. This is probably a good time just to kind of go over a few areas of the headlight to be looking out for if you were looking to buy one used to replace. I already mentioned a few things. You've got the cooked areas of the turn signal. You also are going to have the yellow top. An obvious one that most people know about is that the lens itself cracks, major scratches. Over time, they get that sort of scratched, surface, which sometimes can be cleaned, sometimes cannot, depending how bad it is. And I can even tell you between the brand new driver's side and the passenger side with the supposed 8,000 miles on it, the passenger side, when I received that unit used, I was like, man, this thing is phenomenal. I felt it. Everything feels great. This is amazing. It's like brand new. And then I go to the driver's side, and I feel that one that's brand new, and I'm like, whoa, no, this is brand new. So it really is. You can tell a difference. Like when they're out of the factory, they are like smooth as silk. Like it's really nice. So that's one. And then another thing you need to look for, which I recommend, are the lamps themselves. If you go through the fixture, and I'll show you some footage of that, it's easy to access all the bulbs. And the nice thing is you can actually see the wattage of those bulbs without removing them. And in some cases, it's actually listed on the outside. I believe for the fog light, it's listed on the outside of the fixture. So you can actually see what it should be, and then you should open up and double check. But one other thing that happens a lot with these lights, and maybe it happens even with the factory wattages, but some people will put a higher wattage lamp in there because these lamps aren't that bright, the original halogens. And what will happen is you'll get a little cook spot in the center of the lens, like a little dark spot. And that's oftentimes why people will get rid of them and then update to like electronic, I think that's how you say it, the electronic versions. For me, I like the halogen. Again, I'm going for original. And so I just made sure everything was the correct wattage. I don't drive at night that often, really. Not really. So, obviously I want them to work, but they don't need to be upgraded in any way for my tastes. So the corner pieces, let's jump into that. These are, in my opinion, not a great design. I suppose that they're the way they are so that they just don't fall off. You don't want that to be falling off at you when you're driving. But the way that they snap in, and I'll show you some close-ups here, there's 3 tabs, plus you've got a front tab that has to slide over, and it's a pretty thin piece of plastic. And then there's 2 little circle tabs, which you can see here. And so you're sliding the front tab over first in the front corner. Then you have to get these 2 little circles to fall into their respective holes in the back. All the while, it's working against you because the hooked tabs that have to go over the top are now being stressed by being bent back as you're trying to get these circles in. How do I know this is a problem? Well, when I first took out my driver's side to start working on replacing that left side, I knew this was going to be a tricky thing to take apart. I looked it up, of course, on YouTube to see how to take the thing off properly. Watched a couple different videos, and I found the proper method. There's really only one method to do. And I was extremely careful. I was on my kitchen table, everything, towel, doing surgery. And I went and I literally just started to bend one tab back, barely. I mean, just to pull, and all the tabs just exploded off of this piece. And I was like, great. Now, fortunately, they all snapped off super clean. And so I got my super glue and I went in and I was able to very carefully glue it back together. Part of this is because I did not have a corner piece for the new light. My original thing was to reuse the corner pieces from the old lights to put in new lights to save myself $160 because, like I said, they're ridiculously expensive. But once that broke, I was like, all right, I guess this is just going to be what it is. I'm just going to have to order these pieces. And I'm going to tell you, you cannot really find them cheap. I mean, I would be nervous to even buy them used because I would be afraid they would already have been super glued. So just a word of caution there. So it did glue great, and I put it back in because I actually wanted to drive the car the next morning. So I was kind of bummed if I wasn't going to be able to put this headlight back together. And this thing is held perfectly. It seems super solid. The super glue works great. Obviously, be careful when you're gluing. You don't want it to get into the the light itself. Get stuck to the actual light fixture. But yeah, so that's kind of how that went down. I have to say, my most nerve-wracking part of this entire project and why I kind of procrastinated in swapping these lights out for a good few weeks after I received the corner pieces is I was terrified I was going to go to slide this corner piece in and it was going to snap and I was going to be like $80 and then do another one, snap another $80. I just was so worried. Luckily, the newer plastic is not as brittle. It is still very nerve-wracking. You're kind of closing your eyes and praying that it doesn't snap. But once it's in, it's in. And I think my philosophy is I'm never taking it out. In fact, on these old lights, if I end up putting them for sale, because they are in really good condition, besides that cooked turn signal, the surfaces and everything are great. I'm just going to leave those corner pieces in and let it be as is because I feel like it's a one-way operation on those puppies. And it's one of those pieces when you pull it out, you just expect you're going to break it. Okay, so let's see, where are we at now? I've talked about the lamps. So I've talked about checking those and sticking with OEM if you don't want to risk burn marks. I didn't do any adjustments to the headlights yet. So if I end up doing that and making a video on that, I'll show you. It seems pretty straightforward. The most challenging part actually is just finding a location where you can be the appropriate distance from a wall so that you're able to balance those correctly. The Help Me DIY channel does a great job showing you how to do it. But even he admitted that in his garage, he was only like 3 feet away. Yeah, he had to then make some adjustments prior or after that because it was too low or I think or too high. But the principle of how to do it is there, and you can do it with the light in the vehicle. So that is helpful. So let's put this light back in. So reversing the process. Now for me, I noticed there was a lot of sand in the tray when I took these lights out. I don't know if, this car was in California, it was in Texas, it was in Colorado. I mean, this car's been a lot of places. So who knows, and maybe me just driving up the coast back home, across some deserty areas like towards San Diego. Maybe it's part of that. But there was sand in the tray. So I vacuumed all of that out. I made sure everything in there looked appropriate. Nothing was like broken or anything. And I just took a wet paper towel and sort of wiped it all down and just try to get it clean. And also the backside of the light, the used light that I have, you can see it's like just gets dusty and stuff. So the good news is it just plugs in direct. There's no cables or anything. So as long as you check, make sure the socket's clean and nothing's in there. Now, if you have the headlights that have the washers for the pop up, I can't advise to that. I don't like the look. I think it's just one more part that can go wrong. I don't know why you would ever need to have that seems to me kind of like a silly feature. Like you need to have a headlight washer. I don't know. It's one of those silly features to me. It's like the wiping one, I guess if you're driving outside in the, I don't know. But for me, that just seems like an unnecessary piece to deal with, especially in the corner piece and with the headlight and all this different stuff. So I can't advise on that, but I know there's another cable that comes through and you have to make sure you've sort of aligned it properly, because what will happen is if it's not aligned properly with the hole, when that thing pops up to spray your headlight, it can catch and that's when it can break. And again, it just seems like more troublesome. So putting the headlight back in as a reverse, there's two main guides you want to pay attention to. And if you get the first one right, you're pretty much golden going in. And I'll show a close-up of that here. I should note, now that we're handling the new light and we're placing it back in, don't grab it by the corner piece, because that is one of the weakest places. Grab it on the side, and you can grab it on the turn signal carefully and slide it on in. And once you get it seated all the way in and it's in there correctly, now you can stick your screwdriver with your socket and again, turn it counterclockwise if you're on the passenger side, clockwise if you're on the driver's side. And you'll hear, it'll take some force and you'll hear a solid click, which I'll play right now. There it is. So don't be afraid that it makes that noise. You've got it in there. I thought of one more thing you should check for when you're buying these lights used. The rubber that goes around the light, that's another area that can start to become kind of like taffy. So instead of having the consistency of rubber, like, like when a seal is like a little bit stiffer and it can seal properly and soft, these can become almost like foam feeling, where when you press it in and let go, it stays in there and it will slowly come out. Like a earplug. Have you ever used one of those earplugs that you put in, the cheap disposable ones? That's kind of what it feels like when they start to go bad. So you can run your hand around that bead of that seal and see if it feels good. Just another tip for buying them used that I didn't really think about, but I saw that they can literally just start chunking off. And now you're gonna get more water in there when you wash your car, etc. So I did a close-up of these 4 headlights, okay? And we're going from one that's cooked out, one that's used who knows how long, I'm pretty sure original. You've got one brand new one that from the factory, and then you've got the one that supposedly has 8,000 miles. This is a good range of these lights, okay? And if I look here, if you look at each one, I've got some close-up pictures. None of them are exactly the same when it comes to the oranges matching, which is kind of frustrating. So The one straight from the factory, match the best. Brand new light, brand new corner piece, closest match by far. The 8,000 mile one, it's pretty darn close. Is it gonna bother me because I like these things to all be perfect? Not too much. It's close enough for me. And then, of course, the cooked one you can tell is totally out, and then the other one's sort of like in between. So just know, unless you're just buying them new, and maybe even if I bought a passenger side brand new, it may not even be the same as a driver's side. I checked my buddy Kurt's, his has 16,000 miles. His headlights are brand new. Here's a funny side note. When he joined the Boxster community group, I think it was like a Facebook group, and he said, "Hi, I'm Kurt, Boxster 99 and 16,000 miles." One of the first comments was, "Can I have your headlights?" Which I thought was, if you know these problems with the lights, that is just so on brand for for what we're talking about. So hopefully I've shown you kind of how to get this back in. If you have any issues in the comments, I can answer any questions. The good news is it's extremely straightforward. I mean, it pops out, pops in as one unit. The bad news is because that cooks out and it's all one piece, you have to replace the whole thing if you want it to match. That's the downside, which is why a lot of people will go with the clear version. Now, I kind of like the Runny Egg personally, again, because it's the original, but I do think over time, I'm going to keep my eye out. If I can find a reasonably affordable set of the clear, especially with my car being white, I just think that would be kind of fun, like to be able to just, they're so easy to pull in and out, to swap them, you know? Maybe this summer I have the clear running and then in the wintertime I put the Runny Egg. But these are like, you know, nice problems to have, right? If you've gotten your car to a place where you can sort of like have some swaps of different things. So hopefully I didn't leave anything out. I'm kind of doing this, you know, a different way than a lot of people where I'm in the garage talking through it. I just wanted to be able to concisely be able to focus on kind of how to describe it. Maybe it's making the video longer. I apologize if it is, but hopefully you're able to hear me clearly. You're not trying to hear me through a phone in the garage, and it's makes it a little more, you know, straightforward. If you have any tips that I don't know about with these lights, let me know. I think I've covered pretty much everything. Thanks for watching the video. Hopefully it was at least somewhat helpful. That's the reason I'm here, is just to kind of be helpful. If you want to subscribe, great. I don't anticipate this really big like a YouTube channel, but feel free to if you'd like to. All right, thanks.